Our TV6 Investigates team diving into Deere & Company's largest factory in the Quad Cities, shedding employees. Thanks for being with us. I'm Redrick Terry.
I'm Paula Sands. John Deere announced yesterday that it's cutting 225 jobs in October at Harvester Works in East Moline.
For nearly 200 years, John Deere has been more than just a company. It's been a lifeline to farmers, families, and entire towns across the Midwest. But now, something shocking is unfolding behind closed factory doors, and it's sending shockwaves through U.S. farming industry. Green paint, yellow wheels, and a promise to build for America. Suddenly, all of that feels uncertain. Small towns are bracing for impact, workers are being blindsided, and a decision made in a boardroom could soon reshape the future of farming as we know it. Why now? Why here? And who really stands to win? Let's dive in. Because what you're about to see isn't just about tractors, it's about trust, transformation, and one move that may change the face of rural America forever. Who is John Deere? For nearly 2 centuries, John Deere has been a cornerstone of American agriculture. Founded in 1837 by blacksmith John Deere, the company began with a revolutionary polished steel plow that transformed farming on the tough Midwestern soil. From these humble beginnings in Grand Detour, Illinois, the brand evolved into one of the most recognized and trusted names in farming. Its green and yellow logo became more than a symbol of machinery. It represented endurance, innovation, and the hard-working spirit of rural America. Throughout the 20th century, John Deere expanded rapidly, aligning its identity with the American farmer. The company became deeply integrated into rural life, not just as a supplier of equipment, but as a cultural icon. Its manufacturing hubs across the Midwest, particularly in Iowa and Illinois, fueled local economies and fostered a sense of community pride. Many families across generations worked for John Deere, creating a rare emotional bond between a corporate entity and its labor force. Therefore, domination and retaining brand leadership were not without the advantage of its superior engineering, but a deep commitment to manufacturing everything in America. John Deere, indeed, put its domestic roots heavily onto the benefits it purportedly rendered to the economy of the whole United States. Deere largely retained its U.S. operations, unlike other manufacturers that moved abroad in pursuit of globalization. In this regard, he maintained a loyal farmer base whose reason for loyalty is the ultimate quality and strong national identity. By 2025, however, that heady image began to crack. The new choices in strategy within the company cast quite a shadow on the legacy, raising questions about whether the value the company once lived by still holds. Its history is ever respected, but now it is being audited against the obdurate realities of corporate restructuring and globalization. To many, John Deere is not just about what they built. It is more about whether they can remain true to what they once stood for. But behind the iconic green and yellow logo, a seismic shift was quietly set in motion, one that would change everything. Deere warns tariffs could disrupt farm recovery. As signs of life begin returning to the struggling U.S. farm economy, Deere & Company is sounding the alarm over a new threat: tariffs. After enduring a multi-year slump marked by low commodity prices and rising interest rates, American agriculture is finally poised for a rebound. But company executives warn that looming trade policies, particularly those related to steel, aluminum, and retaliatory duties, could derail that fragile recovery. Deere's performance in the first quarter highlights our continued focus on optimizing inventory, CEO John May said on February 13th. We're seeing compelling evidence that our efforts are positioning the company to successfully navigate the current environment. That environment, however, remains fraught with risk. Deere's 2025 forecast keeps net income expectations between $5 billion and $5.5 billion. But those numbers do not account for potential tariffs proposed by former President Donald Trump. If enacted, the tariffs could sharply raise production costs and impact farmers' ability to invest in new equipment. It will take time for the broader dealership network and John Deere corporate to adjust to the realities of a slower ag economy, said Andy Campbell, Director of Insights at Tractor Zoom, pointing to lingering challenges from oversupply and inflation. Farmers may be especially vulnerable to shifting trade dynamics. With retaliatory tariffs from key partners like China still a concern, Deere has started modeling worst-case scenarios for global demand disruption. On an investor call, company leaders said China's new tariffs on US agricultural equipment would likely be immaterial, but expressed greater uncertainty over how a broader tariff regime might influence machinery exports and raw material prices. A 25% tariff on imported steel, for example, would further pressure Deere's manufacturing costs that often trickle down to already cash-strapped farmers. Still, Deere sees some encouraging signs. Used equipment inventories are beginning to decline after deliberate production cuts, and higher corn prices are giving farmers more confidence to spend. First quarter net income came in at $869 million, slightly above expectations. Meanwhile, Deere continues investing in tech-forward solutions like autonomous machinery and Starlink connectivity kits, innovations aimed at improving productivity in areas with weak infrastructure. But as trade tensions linger, Deere's message remains clear. Without tariff clarity, the farm recovery could be at risk before it even takes root. Why John Deere chose Mexico. John Deere's decision to shift more of its manufacturing operations to Mexico has ignited a storm of criticism from its American workforce, many of whom now accuse the company of abandoning its values for corporate greed. What began as a strategic pivot in late 2023 has escalated into a full-blown exodus of jobs from the Midwest. In the past year alone, John Deere has announced or implemented layoffs impacting hundreds of workers across its U.S. facilities, including 500 in Waterloo, 150 in Ankeny, 103 in Ottumwa, and at least 284 in East Moline. More cuts are expected later this year. We get wind of more layoffs daily, it seems, and it's causing uncertainty all over, said one longtime worker at the Harvester Works plant in Illinois, who asked to remain anonymous. The only reason for Deere to do this is greed. Critics point to the company's soaring profits as proof that these cuts are not driven by financial necessity. In fiscal year 2023, John Deere posted over $10 billion in profits and spent more than $7.2 billion on stock buybacks. CEO John May received $26.7 million in total compensation. Meanwhile, Deere shareholders collected $1.4 billion in dividends. They can import steel cheaper into Mexico and bring it across the border to sell here, said Chris Lawson, a 22-year employee at the Ottumwa plant who opted for early retirement. Deere sees Mexico as a cheap labor source. It's just another sign of the times. More good union jobs gone. It has only aggravated the anger of people who have been put off by the timing of the cuts. Many workers have reported that management is avoiding traditional communication venues to make it seem that the company is just hiding continuing layoffs until the seasonal production targets are met. They don't want people to know they're going to lose their jobs until everything's all built for the year, a Harvester Works employee said. Workers in Iowa and Illinois complain that morale has really plummeted and that the slow-rolling nature of the layoffs, shielded by silence on leadership's part, only leaves a cloud over the workplace with anxiety and mistrust. John Deere has not publicly responded to any of the requests from several communicators, but leaked inter-office communications and the latest reports of the company indicate that it is now on course for some wider global change. News sources say the company plans to relocate its operation of skid steer and compact track loaders from Dubuque, Iowa to Mexico by the end of 2026, following through with another critical step taken in 2022 when the company moved production of cabs from another facility in Iowa. Company executives have come up with these hollow reasons as being imperative for global competitiveness. But in reality, they are not much related to the absence of transparency and the scale of job losses that these moves have attributed to this being simply part of a larger cost-saving exercise. They didn't get fired by a spreadsheet. They were betrayed by a spreadsheet. Ripple effects in the Heartland. The economic fallout from John Deere's offshoring strategy is rippling through the American Midwest with intensifying consequences. Towns like Waterloo, Ottumwa, Dubuque, and Moline, once deeply intertwined with the company's identity, are seeing a double hit: lost jobs and declining local commerce. the company's Q1 2025 earnings report only deepened concerns. With net income down 50% year over year and net sales plummeting 30%, the slowdown is now not just about layoffs, it's about an entire ecosystem starting to contract. This isn't just about losing a paycheck, it's about losing the pulse of a town, said a small business owner in Waterloo whose shop serves many Deere workers. You feel it when fewer people come in for lunch. You feel it when regulars start talking about leaving town. The pain is especially sharp in places like Ottumwa, Iowa, where more than 100 workers took early retirement packages amid fears of deeper cuts and production shifts to Mexico. Chris Lawson, who worked there for 22 years, warned, "It's a town of 28,000 people, and if Deere disappears, so does a huge part of our economic foundation. There's nothing else waiting to catch us." Local banks in the region report rising concerns about consumer lending defaults, and commercial landlords are seeing small retailers downsize or close. Civic leaders in Moline say city tax revenues are falling below forecast, and at least 2 local school districts have paused capital improvement projects due to uncertainty over future property tax flows tied to Deere-related employment. While these economic consequences are being experienced throughout the community, Deere has continued to scale back its production here at home. In February 2025, Deere announced that sales for its production and precision agriculture division decreased by 37% compared to a year earlier, and the small agriculture and turf division saw a decrease of 28%. Dealers say they're ordering fewer machines, and some local suppliers dependent on Deere contracts are preparing for layoffs of their own. To considerably exacerbate the slump, throughout the quarter, Deere had seen an astonishing 35% decline in revenues, short of analysts' expectations, owing to farmers postponing new machinery purchases or renting their needs during the downturn in crop incomes and the rise in interest rates. And CFO Joshua Jepson stated on an earnings call, "Our primary focus remains on understanding how proposed tariffs may impact our customers' operations," as concerns grew over Trump-era tariffs on China, Canada, and Mexico that continued to cloud the agricultural forecast. Materials such as steel and aluminum, by the way, have continued to shoot up in price due to widespread 25% import tariffs, leading to pressure on manufacturing costs and squeezing margins even more. "There's a domino effect," said an economic development official in Illinois. "When Deere cuts back, it doesn't just affect their workforce, it drains the entire local business ecosystem, from machine parts to pizza parlors." Perhaps most incomprehensible is the emotional and cultural toll. John Deere was never just a job, it was part of the fabric of these communities. Green and yellow logos had adorned Little League uniforms, parades, and community centers. Now it all feels empty. "It's not just the economic hit," said a laid-off employee from the Dubuque plant. "It's that they're not talking to us. There's no roadmap, no town halls, no voice on the ground." To date, as of March 2025, the company has not announced any comprehensive recovery or reinvestment plan for the affected communities, effectively leaving local officials to salvage their economies with little support. As trust withers and job losses pile on one another, the question isn't just whether Deere can save itself, it's whether these communities will ever recover from the slow gouging of the economic partner they once called their own. Public backlash and political pressure. The announcement of John Deere's production shift to Mexico ignited widespread backlash from workers, farmers, and the general public, many of whom had long seen the company as a symbol of American craftsmanship and rural pride. Across social media platforms, the hashtag #BoycottDeere began trending in early 2024, with former employees and loyal customers expressing their anger over what they viewed as a betrayal. Protests erupted in several Midwestern towns, and unions representing John Deere workers accused the company of prioritizing profits over people, especially in light of its record-breaking financial performance. The outrage quickly caught the attention of elected officials from both parties. Several Midwestern governors, including those of Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin, publicly criticized the decision, urging the company to reconsider and citing the damage it would do to regional economies. In Congress, bipartisan calls for reform emerged, with proposals ranging from tax penalties for companies that offshore jobs to new Made in America incentives aimed at protecting domestic manufacturing. While some viewed these efforts as symbolic, others saw them as the beginning of a more aggressive stance against corporate offshoring. For all of Washington's backlash, it was part of a broader national conversation about the future of manufacturing in the United States. In January 2025, a group of lawmakers introduced the American Workforce Retention Act, which sets conditions on federal subsidies, such as those the agriculture and manufacturing firms receive, for performance benchmarks related to employment in the United States. Although the act has not yet been adopted, it points toward impatience with corporations that can accept public benefits while they are working to take jobs overseas. A case in point is John Deere, which received agricultural incentives but is now under pressure regarding its ongoing eligibility for such programs. Thus far, the company has attempted to manage the story through press statements and executive interviews, but these have achieved little in calming the storm. Internal memos, also leaked to the public in February 2025, revealed that going back, Deere executives had seen the backlash coming but chose to proceed anyway, deeming it a manageable reputational risk. That admission only served to heighten public anger and stoked new calls for corporate accountability. With the shift in the political landscape, Deere finds itself not only with economic challenges demanding resolution, but also with the budding of a more vibrant political movement determined to hold it and others like it answerable for the broader repercussions of offshoring. The human cost behind the numbers. The recent layoffs at John Deere have profoundly affected numerous individuals and families, bringing personal hardships to the forefront. Matthew Schultz and his wife, both employees at the Davenport Works facility, were laid off on the same day. Matthew expressed a deep sense of disappointment, contrasting his initial pride in joining John Deere with the current feelings of betrayal. The couple now faces significant financial uncertainty, grappling with immediate concerns such as rent, car payments, and daily expenses. Beyond the immediate financial strain, the layoffs have taken an emotional toll on affected employees. Discussions among former workers reveal feelings of being undervalued and a sense of disillusionment with the company's direction. One former employee, reflecting on a 20-year tenure, highlighted concerns about overhiring and the prioritization of profits over experienced personnel. Such sentiments underscore the challenges faced by long-term employees who dedicated years to the company, only to find themselves abruptly unemployed. That much dollar falls into some craters of the wider community, local businesses thriving in cash from employees of John Deere slowly sinking into helpless revenue dribbling. Insecure families would have turned stable lives into penury for basic needs and dwindling options for job opportunities because these layoff events become the way of economic reality. While such layoff events interrupt personal circumstances, the economies of whole communities are put to the test. In response, employees have gone ahead to create new methods to cope with their ordeal. While some seek temporary jobs, others are also seeking retraining or further studies to have a broader skill base. In addition, they also provided assistance services for the people involved with goods and talent, amongst other things, through their community support networks and local organizations. Even with all these tribulations, former John Deere employees still stand together as a strong collective unit to try and build and survive in their moments of adversity. As trust fractures and communities reel, others are quietly stepping in to fill the void John Deere left behind. A window for rivals. The turmoil surrounding John Deere's outsourcing decision has created a rare and valuable opening for competitors to gain ground in a historically loyal market. Farmers disillusioned by layoffs, rising equipment costs, and diminishing customer service have started re-evaluating their loyalty to the iconic green and yellow brand. Competitors like Kubota, CNH Industrial, and Caterpillar are responding with aggressive marketing, expanded dealer networks, and streamlined financing options, positioning themselves as more dependable, customer-focused alternatives. Kubota, long seen as a compact equipment specialist, has significantly expanded its US footprint over the past 2 years, with a reputation for simplicity, reliability, and affordability, the Japanese manufacturer is attracting small to mid-size farmers who feel alienated by John Deere's increasing push toward automation and proprietary technology. Kubota has also made strategic investments in Texas and Georgia, reinforcing its commitment to American manufacturing, a move not lost on farmers looking to support companies that create domestic jobs. Meanwhile, a dual-brand strategy by CNH Industrial, the parent company of Case IH and New Holland, is keeping pace with row crop and livestock-focused operations. Differentiating from Deere, CNH can promote across North America without needing to speak of the backlash caused by offshored manufacturing. Recently, Case IH launched an array of mid-range tractors and harvesters that compete with prices easily caught up by maintenance-inclined tenants, the dream of countless disillusioned customers drawn to John Deere. The financial services division of CNH is offering bonuses for trade-ins against the equipment of Deere targeted at farmers. Most surprising is that Caterpillar goes into the ag arenas and heavily modifies its heavy equipment toward large farming applications. Built initially on construction and mining, Caterpillar claims its legacy of durable and after-sales support to endear itself to the larger farming outfits. Newly formed, its precision ag division has generated attention quickly as high-tech growers wary of Deere's closed system approach see this as an avenue for upward mobility. While Deere weathers the backlash and brand erosion from discontented users, these challengers are not merely picking up the slack, but also laying the groundwork for long-term changes in shaping the agricultural equipment landscape. The automation gamble. John Deere has positioned itself as a leader in agricultural automation, with the company betting heavily on AI-driven technologies and robotics to define the future of farming. Over the past 3 years, it has invested billions into developing autonomous tractors, drone-enabled crop monitoring, and precision seeding systems powered by machine learning. In early 2025, the company unveiled updates to its autonomous 8R tractor line, with full-scale deployment expected across North America by 2026. Deere executives maintain that automation will help farmers do more with less, improving yields, cutting labor costs, and making agriculture more sustainable in the face of climate volatility and labor shortages. However, this technological leap has not been universally embraced. Many small to medium-sized farmers, especially those in the Midwest, feel alienated by what they describe as Deere's top-down tech push. Critics argue that the company is moving too quickly toward automation without adequately supporting farmers through training, affordability, or service. Additionally, John Deere's proprietary software systems and repair restrictions have come under fire in recent years, as customers demand more control over the machines they purchase. Even with new right-to-repair legislation gaining momentum in multiple states, some farmers view Deere's ecosystem as increasingly closed and corporate-driven. Another major issue is that it seems the automation approach is being developed far away from a workforce that it relies on from the start. With the gradual move away from human labor in both manufacturing and in-field operations, more of Deere's equipment is being automated. This shift may be glorious in terms of tech, but brings industry anxiety about job dislocations and a growing sense of disconnect between the company and its rural base. Some of the former workers laid off in the 2024 restructuring commented on the perception that Deere is investing in robots while laying off the very people who built its legacy. Such perception damages the goodwill that Deere has come to rely upon in some of its most important markets. Deere, however, sees itself as banking on the future. The company has said that automation represents not only a competitive edge, but also a matter of survival in a fast-changing sector. It argues that in the future, fewer people will work on farms, more data will be used, and whoever has precision tech will be market masters. While Deere undoubtedly has an edge in this regard, the very backlash it faces surrounding its recent decisions may undermine its credibility for marketing that vision. The current hurdle is creating not only smarter machinery, but also persuading a disillusioned customer base that the machinery is still made for them. Reputation on the line. For decades, John Deere cultivated an image rooted in trust, loyalty, and a deep connection to American farmers. That trust is now under unprecedented strain, The company's decision to shift manufacturing to Mexico, despite record profits, sparked a wave of disillusionment among longtime customers and employees alike. The layoffs, outsourcing, and perceived prioritization of corporate shareholders over rural communities have collectively triggered what many are now calling a trust deficit crisis. This erosion is not just emotional, it's materializing in the form of slowed sales, declining dealer sentiment, and rising competitor conversions. Recent data from independent equipment dealers across the Midwest reveals a noticeable dip in John Deere orders during the first quarter of 2025. Particularly in smaller markets where community relationships still heavily influence purchase decisions. Farmers who once viewed Deere as synonymous with quality and local pride are increasingly questioning whether the brand still represents their values. The issue isn't just price or performance, it's a matter of principle. As one Iowa farmer put it in a February 2025 trade publication interview, "I didn't stop trusting Deere because they built bad tractors. I stopped trusting them because they stopped building for us." This reputational slide is further complicated by Deere's digital ecosystem, which some customers feel has grown overly inflexible and corporate. Proprietary locking software, complicated service agreements, and interminable right-to-repair disputes have all served to tarnish the image of Deere as a supporter of independent farmers. On the one hand, with some advancements toward compliance with some state-level repair laws, there is still the perception that the brand has moved from being a partner to being more of a gatekeeper. And this transition, combined with outsourcing, nurtures the conviction that the company wants to enforce control rather than collaborate. If betrayal of trust is committed once, it is very difficult to regain. The name of John Deere had never been established in agriculture not only on the basis of technological innovation or production output, but rather on cultural loyalty and a shared sense of purpose. As that very relationship is being torn apart, a bigger challenge now for the company will be bringing back customers from discounts or product upgrades. The real question is whether it can regain the confidence of farmers and communities that once defined its very identity. If it fails, the implications for John Deere may run a long time beyond this current dip in goodwill. Losing government support. John Deere has long benefited from a wide array of government programs designed to support American manufacturing and agriculture. These include federal tax incentives, state-level workforce development grants, and access to agricultural equipment subsidies tied to domestic production. For decades, Deere was the poster child for American industrial success, leveraging its Made in USA branding to secure favorable treatment from lawmakers and agencies. However, the company's decision to move a substantial portion of its manufacturing operations to Mexico has placed many of these benefits in jeopardy and raised the question of whether a company that offshores jobs should continue to receive taxpayer-backed support. The backlash in Washington has been swift. In early 2025, members of Congress introduced proposed revisions to several manufacturing and agriculture-related subsidy programs, with language specifically designed to tie federal benefits to domestic job retention. One of the most prominent efforts is the American Workforce Retention Act, which would restrict access to subsidies for any company that outsources more than a certain percentage of its US-based jobs. While the legislation is still under debate, its momentum has already caused ripple effects across the manufacturing sector, and John Deere has emerged as a primary example of the kind of corporate behavior the bill seeks to address. Following the same tenor, state governments are beginning to mutter. Lawmakers in Iowa and Illinois, where John Deere once counted among the largest private employers, are reviewing these development incentives and property tax abatements previously given to the company. Several officials have presented ideas about clawing back incentives if jobs with which the agreements are linked are not maintained. These talks have further stimulated discussions about the need for transparency in corporate subsidy deals, with watchdogs calling for public audits of John Deere's benefits secured over the last 10 years. For Deere, that is not merely regulatory, however, but strategic. The thought of losing these benefits would undermine a critical cost advantage just when Deere is trying to justify shifting to operations in low-cost manufacturing hubs. More to the point, Breaking down goodwill with governments could harm the company in shaping future agricultural and trade policy, a traditional arena of considerable influence. While attempting to maximize global efficiency, Deere may have miscalculated the lengthy political costs of shrinking its domestic footprint, particularly during what looks like an election where economic patriotism is at the forefront. With political pressure mounting and support slipping away, the path to redemption may depend on one crucial question: can John Deere rebuild what it's broken before it's too late? Can Deere win back the farm? John Deere now finds itself at a crossroads, facing the consequences of a decision that alienated workers, upset lawmakers, and rattled its most loyal customer base. While the reputational damage has been significant, the company still retains formidable strengths: cutting-edge technology, global scale, and a century-long legacy of innovation. To chart a recovery, Deere must take bold, visible steps to restore trust, not just with words, but with tangible commitments that signal a renewed investment in its domestic roots and rural communities. At the top of that list is a potential reshoring initiative, reopening or expanding U.S. production facilities to offset the outsourcing backlash and show good faith to the communities it impacted. Deere could also pursue customer-facing strategies to slow defections and rebuild brand loyalty. These include offering extended warranties, repair credits, and financing deals specifically for customers in regions affected by job losses. Some dealers have floated the idea of a Farmers First program, rewarding long-time John Deere customers with service perks, trade-in bonuses, and local support teams. Reinvesting in its dealer network, especially in areas hardest hit by layoffs, would also help re-anchor the brand in the communities where trust has eroded the most. These steps alone won't erase the damage, but they can signal a willingness to listen and adapt. If this story caught your attention, don't stop here. Like this video if you care about the future of American manufacturing. Comment below. We'd love to hear your take on John Deere's latest moves and how it's impacting your community. Subscribe for more real updates the mainstream media won't show you. And don't forget to watch the next video on your screen. It dives even deeper into what's really happening behind the scenes. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.